Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.
You ain't getting no money if you constantly worried about what everybody else got to say. If you constantly got your eyes on what everybody else doing, you ain't getting no money. When it comes down to closing a deal, I get it done. Every single one. I'm the certified deal closer.
Welcome to Coinology, the podcast. Hey, and welcome to another episode of Coinology. And I'm here with none other than attorney Rosezena Pierce. Welcome to the Coinology studios today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Girl, we've been trying to get this for a while, right?
I know.
You're so busy.
Girl, I'm happy I'm here. When we pulled up in the parking lot, I was like, we made it.
Finally, girl, we've been trying forever, right?
Yeah.
How long you been in Atlanta?
I actually moved here from Chicago in 2017.
Okay, because I think I vaguely remember when you first moved here. Mm-hmm. Yep, or you came here straight from Chicago, whole new change of life, starting your new law firm, and you just took off.
Well, do you remember, even before I moved here, I think you guys had a client in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Yep.
That big event.
That's right.
Actually,
yep.
And that was like my first introduction to like Atlanta people.
Yep.
I love that environment. I love that spirit. I love how everybody was just like willing to help everybody.
Is that the reason why you moved to Atlanta?
You know, that was one of the reasons. And then I wanted to be somewhere where Black people were thriving, right? Mm-hmm. Like where I come from, Chicago, like we could be in a room full of lawyers, TV, film people, Black people, and there's no news coverage on that. Nobody's highlighting that or promoting that, but they highlight all the violence and things like that. And so I'm just like, I need to go somewhere where like my greatness is not only accepted, but it's like, you know, it's promoted, you know, it's glorified. And the people are there like push further, push more. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Black Mecca, Atlanta.
Okay, and so has it met your standards?
I would say Atlanta has been good until these recent housing, you know, rates have increased.
Crazy,
even though,
right?
like for me, I locked in 2020 with my house, thankfully, because when I moved here in 2017, I said I was going to wait 4 years to buy a house. But then when COVID happened, I was so happy that I just heard God say move, and I moved in and bought at the same time, at the proper time. But now I'm just looking at all the other young professionals that's trying to come to the city. And it's just like they can't reap those same benefits, and it's almost sad.
I often tell people that, you know, the home ownership is like a dream of the past. I don't know. If you don't already have a home, it's almost difficult for a recent college grad to be able to afford to purchase a home. And I also question, Rosezena, if it makes financial sense for individuals fresh out of college to put themselves in a $500,000 debt or more buying a home, because really the average house now you're going to pay about $4,000,
And
$5,000.
that ain't gonna look like nothing.
And that right, nothing, right. But that's what it is. So how did you know you wanted to be an attorney?
I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 5. My dad had his exposure with lawyers by having a criminal background.
Okay.
But as I was young, he was always taking me around different attorneys and things like that. And I was just like, I want to do what they do. And I remember going to 26th in California. That's the county jail when I was very young. And I just remember like seeing how they were moving in a courtroom. The people with the suits on, you know, my 5-year-old mind. I was like, I want to do what they do. It seemed like they got some power in here. And, you know, I was just like, from then when people be asking you, know, what do you want to do when you grow up? I always say, a lawyer.
So you never had anything to say, I can't do this. You knew at 5 years old, I can do this.
I was going to be a lawyer. And,
wow.
I had some challenges coming up and things like that, but I was just like, time moves. I remember going to law school and people asking me, you know, how long that take? And I'd be like, I got to go to undergrad. That's going to be like 4 years. And then I'm going to do law school. I'm going to do part-time in the evening. That's 4. And they'd be like, damn, that's a long time. And I can see those people now. Like, so that was 18 years ago because I've been practicing for 10 now. But I could see those people now kind of still in that same spot, right, that they were in when they were asking me about the timing. And so for me, it wasn't really like, you know, about how long it's going to take or the challenges. I was just like, just got to make it happen. And one thing my daddy always told me, he told me quitters never win and winners never quit. And so I was just knew in my mind, like, okay, I'm a winner, so I ain't going to quit till I win.
That's right.
That was one of my things that I just had to keep pushing forward till I got it done.
You know, one of the things I hear you say that reminds me a lot of myself is your daddy. Because for me, my father, I think having a father in a household does a lot with self-confidence.
Yeah.
He gave me the security to feel as if I can take over the world and I can do anything. And it sounds like your dad kind of gave you that security as well.
You know, and we talked and I said, well, I'm not going to talk about my dad, my father, my family. But one thing I can attribute to my father, you know, my daddy was a crackhead when I was growing up, right? But he was just such a, like, from his street mentality, he was just a cold thinker. You know what I'm saying? And even, like, in his addiction, he was still a great father to me. And I was just telling somebody yesterday who said they despised their father because, you know, she was the older child, but he was, you know, he was in the house with his younger kids or whatever. And, you know, my sister and I kind of had that situation, my older sister. But I'm like, but she ain't see me, you know, like, at 8 years old, like, going to the crack house, like, Daddy, can you please come home? Can you please do this? Can you please? And thank God, my father went to jail, and that's what saved him. He went to jail when I was 13, and that saved him because that's when he became clean. He was in his addiction for like 20 years, and now he's a community activist. He feeding he feed the whole community for Thanksgiving because he a cook, because he's a, you know, my family come from that background. And he just, like, he's truly, like, my hero.
I know he's proud of you.
Yeah, and I'm proud of him, you know, because I remember, like, you know, like, going to the crack spot, you know, while my mom and daddy buying drugs and stuff like that. And, you know, seeing different things, but it's just, like, he always told me, even in his addiction or whatever, like, you a winner. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just seen so much for his baby girl. You know what I'm saying? We spent a lot of time together. And my other brothers and sisters, they make fun, like, you the favorite. But I'm like, you know, my brother always say the closest get the mostest. And it's like, we was, like, when my mama put him out, I packed my stuff and went with my dad. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I'm a daddy's girl through and through. I'm a daddy's girl through and through. And I'm going to tell you, what you're able to do when you love somebody and you love somebody unconditionally, you can see beyond the things that other people use as judgment. And the love that you and your father had was beyond that challenge that he had. And the fact that you're still a daddy's girl, that says so much. And then so you go on to college. Did you pledge any sororities, fraternities? Did you have a normal college life?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all. I'm from the west side of Chicago.
Okay.
So I was, you know, exposed to a lot of things. And when I was in school, I had my kids.
Okay.
And so, you know, I had to work and go to school. And that's why, like, for me, like, I needed that instillment very young. Like, you know, just saying, like, quitters never win, winners never quit. Because it was so many things that, like, my parents didn't force me to go to school. You know what I'm saying? Like, back in the day, like, it was just, from where I'm from, like, if you got a high school diploma, that's
you
good.
Did your thing.
Now you go get your government job and you work your government job or you work for the post office, whatever, and that's it. But I just knew, like, being in that environment when I was young, I was like, I just gotta be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer. And I always loved to read when I was young. And so I was just like, you know, researching, like, what does that take? And so I had to go to work, take care of them babies, but also at the same time, I was like, I'm gonna go to school too. So I found, like, part-time evening programs to go to school. And did those and just did it at the same time. So I didn't have time for, like, sororities or anything like that, because I'm like, I'm raising kids. I gotta go to this job, and then when I clock out, I gotta rush to class, and then on my weekends, I gotta study and get my stuff done. So I didn't have.
So you always been a hustler.
Always.
And because that takes, I think what's so amazing, Rosezena, is that you came from Chicago, the inner city, and the challenges and so forth, and nothing ever said in your mind, I'm going to use the excuses of life to not do what my dream is. You know, I hear a lot of people, and all they have is, if this didn't happen, if my mom didn't do this, if that didn't do that, I could have been.
Yeah.
And you just did it regardless.
regardless. I think one thing I would say I'm grateful to my mom for, and she down here right now with me, but she's still in Chicago. When I was young, she sent me places, right? And my mom, like in her, I don't never really consider my mom addicted to drugs. She was a functional, you know what I'm saying? But she did it more so to be like closer to her husband.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like have that relationship. So my mama always taught me, you pay your bills before you eat. Like my grandfather, like just instilled that in her. Like he was a man who had 10 kids. He put them all through Catholic school. My aunties and uncles don't eat steak because he used to go get a whole cow from the meat market and, you know, do what he had to do with his 10 kids coming from Arkansas to Chicago or whatever. And just seeing that, and it's just like, there is no excuses. Like, do what you got to do. And she sent me different places and exposed me to different things. Even though, you know what I'm saying, my environment was the west side of Chicago where people, you know, are using drugs, getting killed and things like that. And it's just like, you know, that was the best thing she could have did for, even when she couldn't go. You know, I remember one time she sent me to California and I, you know, one of my uncles was out there and he, you know, he took me on Rodeo Drive and I'm like 11 and I'm like, oh, this is a lot. You know,
that's your life. You saw yourself.
Yeah, and I'm like, you know, she sent me to Canada. Even when she couldn't go.
Right.
She was like, I just want you to see different things. And that really, really helped me a lot.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you graduate from law school, okay?
Yep.
Did you immediately start practicing law?
I did.
Okay.
So I graduated, though, and didn't have a job offer.
And that's why I wanted, because I hear that when you graduate from law school, everyone's on pins and needles about passing the bar. But then the next thing is, are they going to get an offer from one of the big firms?
So typically what happened is you already have the offer before you even go to the big firm.
Okay.
Because the big firms see so much, they like, we know you're going to pass. So, so you got to imagine, first of all, I was on law review. So I was on what we call Ripple, which was the...
What does that mean? Yeah.
The review of intellectual property law. So I was on a law review. So to be on a law review journal, period, you got to be one of the most prestigious kids in the law school in your class at that time, right? So I was on the intellectual property law review. Okay. And to be like, and it's so crazy because the law review that I was on, it probably was like 10 years in. And so I was the 4th Black person on that law review.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
But think about this. Now I come to our law review office, right? It looked like a little conference room in a law school or whatever. And all 12 of the white kids got a job offer. But me and the other person, who is just so happened to be, he made history because he's the editor-in-chief of the law review, but now he's the first Black editor-in-chief of that law review, we didn't have a job offer. And so it's just like, in that circumstance, it's difficult. It's hard because it's kind of like when sports players are going through college and they going through the draft and things like that, and all these teams are fighting for them. And I was like, damn, I made the law review and I still ain't got a job offer or anything. And I was so particular about the type of job that I wanted. I wanted to only work in intellectual property. And so I only applied for those type of jobs. And
so everybody think that was the problem?
No, because, I mean, if you look at my transcripts, I wanted to be a trademark lawyer. Right. And so I studied that and everything, and I wanted intellectual property law review, right? If I would have applied to say, be a divorce attorney, or if I would have applied to be a civil attorney or criminal, I probably would have been pigeonholed. You get what I'm saying? In that position, and never would have seen my dreams through, right? That's right. So that's why I was like, I was very particular and intentional, and I wasn't going to apply to any other type of law position job, because in the law field, if you're not coming out of law school with that job offer, they want, in order for them to call you like a lateral hire, meaning like you're going to come in, you got to have the experience. So it's like, okay, if I don't have the experience.
So you basically, you didn't have the offer, you didn't have the experience, so that could have just pushed you into having to be a paralegal or doing something completely different.
Girl, I even tried to be a paralegal and they wouldn't hire me.
Really?
Then now they saying you overqualified, and it's so funny because my bachelor's degree was in paralegal studies. So I was a paralegal for a commercial litigation firm, but I didn't want anything but in the trademark field. And what's so funny and crazy is that when I was finishing up law school, and I had 3 kids at the time. My son was 11, my daughter was 7, and my baby girl was 5 months old. So now I'm like, I don't have any job offers, but I've been working and going to school since I was 14 years old, right? So now I take the bar in February, no job offers, but now this is my first time not having to go to work or school, and I'm just sitting at home. And now I get to see, like, when my kids are coming home from school. And so now I feel like that was the time God allowed me to sit and be still with myself and realize, like, okay, what really am I chasing? What really do I want? And in that moment, I realized, like, I really like being at home. My kids come home from school. And I was like, how can I match this motherhood thing? I still got to be a lawyer because I wanted to be that since I was 5, right? But, like, how can that come together? And I was battling with that because the job I was chasing, which was a big law firm job, they require, like, you bill 50, 60 hours in a week. You know what I'm saying? And it's really high pressure, especially a first-year associate and things like that. And so when I found out I passed the bar the first time, I found out in April, thank God. My sworn-in ceremony was in May. So in Illinois, they make you take a professional responsibility course before getting sworn in. And I say God makes no mistakes because the professor who taught that professional responsibility course, he was the same professor who taught lawyers how to start their own law practice. Now, he didn't teach me how to start my own law practice, but what he told me on that day during our break, I said, I don't got no job offer. Because me and him was just talking while everybody went to the bathroom, wherever they went. And so he was like, take a smoke break or something. And so I was like, I don't have no job offers, but I really like being at home. My kids come home from school. Like, I'm really enjoying being at home. And you got to remember, this was 2013 where virtual was not popular or anything. And he was like, just start your own law firm. And he said it so casually, so easy. I was like, I can't do that. He was like, who's underserved? Who is the underserved people that you want to serve? And I was like, immediately, because where I'm from, I'm like, I don't want to do criminal law. I want to do family law, right? And I said it out loud. He was like, no, who's underserved in the practice area that you've been practicing, that you want to practice in? And I was like, small business owners? He's like, you'll go a long way serving the underserved. And I feel like I had a plan, but God had such a bigger plan. Yeah. Because, like, in my plan, I wanted that first year associate job where you come out in Chicago making $160K a year, right? But then, according to his plan, like, just doing my own thing, and once I began to walk it, it just, it just started falling on me.
Because if you had followed what you wanted to do, the Biz Lawyer probably would not have ever existed.
Never existed.
Because one of the things about firms and so forth, you got to fit into their mode. You got to walk their walk, talk their talk, and all that. And you have been able to mesh the world of law as well as the beauty and influence a lot of attorneys don't have that down pat, right? Yeah. Because, I mean, in a sense, I know you are an attorney, but you're also an influencer too. Would you say so?
I don't know if I would say that yet. I mean, I guess.
Yeah. And then so if you think about that, you've been able to mesh the two worlds. And if you were in corporate, or
that would have been
you wouldn't have been able to do that.
And that's why I say, like, it's guys, because, like, okay, 10 years later, fast forward, right? I just got an email for the third time in a year. We're in the top 1% of trademark law firms out of over 28,000 law firms in this country.
Wow.
I'm ranked
Congratulations.
number 15, thank you, out of 33,000 trademark law firms in this country. And what's so funny is I was on my way to Vegas when the report first came out. And they ranked us number 37, and they published the whole 100 list, right? So I go to the list, and I'm on a plane, and I don't know 1 through 36.
And you didn't even know you were up for consideration?
I got a text message from my COO. She was like, girl, look what we just got in the email. And I thought it was, and I'm like, girl, send me no, I told her, get the report. And I couldn't download. I was trying my best to download it, and it wouldn't download until I was in the air. Which is so odd because usually that's the hardest place you can get something to download. And when it downloaded, I looked and I seen 1 through 30. Well, I went to 37 first and seen R.J. Pierce Law Group. And I was like, wow. And then looked at the other people, didn't know who they were. But what's so funny, Ebony, is when I went to look through 50 through 100, I started noticing all the law firms that I applied for. I applied for at least 40 of those law firms, including number 100, out of that list. And that's when God spoke to me. He said, see, people's rejection is my protection.
That's right.
And you couldn't be below their name, beneath their name, because I had to have you above it. And we have made that list 3 years in a row now.
Girl, you just gave me chills saying that. So have you seen any of these folks that did not hire you? Have you seen them since? Did they know who you've become?
I don't know. They probably, I don't know. Because, they have their HR departments and things like that.
Yeah, they probably didn't even, and they probably didn't even remember the name or whatever. They probably get so many applicants that come through.
They probably don't remember, but I think they will hear my story one day. I actually want to start speaking about diversity inclusion because, like, in the field of law, they only pick the top. Right? And that could be like, the valedictorian or the person who scores straight A's, right? But you missed out on a winner like me who finished law school with three kids and who also, passed the bar the first time. And now, instead of me, where you could have worked with me, I'm your competitor now. You get what I'm saying?
What do you think? Why do you think? I know sometimes it's easy for us to say it's because I'm black. But sometimes it's other things as to the reason. What do you really truly believe in your heart? And I'll tell you what I think.
I mean, I do believe our race does play a factor in situations like that, right? Because that's more of a field where you might, more like a Ivy League kind of field, right? And so it's just like, in those fields, as a black person, you don't have the privilege to be mediocre.
That's right.
You just don't have the privilege to be that, right? Because it's going to be some other people just based on their association or who they know and things like that that's going to get it. And they ain't even got to, submit a resume. It's just because of their connections and who they're tied to. Now, I told you my father, by way of the legal field, was through the criminal justice system, right? You know what I'm saying? But I didn't have no rich uncles in my family or no, lawyers or anything like that. So it really kind of does come from, like, I believe, like, where we're coming from and the people that we're closely related to. Now, I may not always have to do, that might not be the ending factor of it all, because I'm a black woman and I'm going to get my success because I'm going to make my success, right? And I'm not going to allow that to be my excuse. But I do believe, because I seen it, right? Just being in that environment, it gets challenging for, people like us, because the job offers are not coming as freely. And sometimes, like, I don't know if they still do it like this now, but we used to have, like, campus interviews, right? Where you can go on campus, you can do an interview. So they see who you are. Right. They see what you look like. You get what I'm saying? And so it's like, okay, and I finished law school with a 3.6. So it wasn't like I had, and all my if you check my transcripts, all my intellectual property classes in law school, I got straight A's. I think I got 1 B, and I was pregnant and missed something because I had my baby during my semester or whatever. Wow. Other than that, like, so it can't speak to my, you know what I'm saying?
Your grades.
My grades or anything like that, which that's what they look at the majority of the time. But it's just like, I'm not sure, but I just, I thank God for that rejection now.
Wow. Yeah, most definitely. I always, rejection and betrayal are two things that I always thank God for. Yeah. Right? It hurts at that moment, but the pivot was required to get you to where you needed to go. So let's go into trademarking, right?
Tell me really quick what you think, because you said you had a thought about
I'm glad you stopped me on that. I think that in certain fields, such as law and such as medical, things like that, I think that many times, because it's such a small percentage of us there, they're used to African American women looking a certain way. And if you're too glamorous, too beautiful, or too flamboyant, or too, like both you and I are, many times they don't think we're smart. Whereas with Caucasian women, they're celebrated for that because that is what they're, but I think for us, many times people tend to think that Black women are just fashion bots. And the more fashionable or beautiful or they remove the intellect, and so they go in with a preconceived notion. Now, I think if you was just a Black girl, no weave, just 2 years, just straight to the bottom, and also trying to assimilate, and not necessarily be authentically who you are.
Yeah, and that's why I thank God for that rejection. Because you almost have to conform into a world, right?
Yep.
Because even I remember going on the job interviews and I pull my hair back and I'll wrap it up in a bun, right? And then I'll, have my little pearls on, that I bought from TJ Maxx or something, off of State Street, trying to, get the job or whatever. But also, too, like, I'm from the hood.
But see, that's what I'm saying.
Right? Like,
they
so
can
when I open my mouth,
right.
and it's like, and I didn't want to not be able to be who I am. In that moment, I just thought I needed the job. I want the job, and people will accept me, and I'll deal with the challenges that come. But God knows you better than you know yourself.
Right.
And he like, no, I need you to be exactly who I made you.
Who I made you to be. And that's the people that I want you to touch, because I think in that space, I remember, fast forward, you moved to Atlanta and you started working in your space. And I remember seeing your name out there, doing this, doing that. But then it was just like, one day it was an explosion, right? And you were everywhere. And all the small business owners and influencers and everybody, they all said, oh, trademark by Biz Lawyer. And the thing about it that I think that was so unique about it is you were helping small businesses that probably initially didn't even know what a trademark was. And I was happy for that, because I think one of the biggest challenges we have in business today is properly structuring our businesses to a point where it's not a hustle, it's not a mom and pop, but it's actually something that we can pass down to our children, something that will generate generational wealth. And when I started seeing just some of the t-shirt companies and just traditional companies that you would not think that would think about LLCs, would not think about trademarks, would not think about the typical, bookkeeping, actually getting their stuff in order.
Yeah.
I had never seen that many people doing that until I saw you come into the industry.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I would definitely, I think beyond just it being a business for you, I think when you look at the ministry of it, right? Because if you think about the amount of people who will now have something to actually be proud of and be able to hand that off is something that I don't know that our generation really had prior to that. Not to the degree. Right. So did you foresee that?
So I never forget that professor's words, and I didn't even get it on that day. But like once I started, like the phone started ringing and things like that, I was like, the underserved, serving the underserved. And for me, the service comes with the education. Like you said, educating them, letting them know like this is what they need. And so I just knew, again, like, my parents, they are amazing teachers. My brother always say we got a cold support team, like, because they're street knowledge, but they're also like book smart, and they just be like if you're gonna do something, you got to do it great, and my mama stand me in the mirror and be like, say, I'm gonna pass this by, like have me shouting in the house. So it's just like, even though it was a lot of chaos, they always like just made sure they promoted like the greatness and the excellence. And so I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, I better like just do it. And I remember going on Instagram my first time, and I was just picking the name. I didn't know. I was just, because I was new to Instagram, because I had like shut out social media like all during law school. Like my first week of law school, I remember sitting in my torts class, somebody tried to show me Facebook, and I remember spending like 2 classes not paying attention to the professor. In the first year of law school, they'll flunk you, kick you out the school if you like end up in the bottom 10%. And I was like, I gotta shut this off. This is a distraction. So when I came to social media as an entrepreneur, I was like, I can do something here. Like, because I was like, I don't like posting pictures of me. I don't like taking pictures, and I was like, I don't like doing that, but I can like post content about education, like why they need this. I think the biggest pivotal moment for me, I moved here in 2017. I was still going back and forth to Chicago, handling my court cases. I was doing contract law. I was doing real estate cases. I was doing the intellectual property. I was even working with entertainers. But I was burnt out by 2018, like almost to the point I was resentful of my business.
Really?
Burnt out because I was going back and forth to Chicago. I never increased my client's price. So the price was the price.
Now, why was that? Were you intimidated to increase your price?
I felt guilty that in a way I had a sense of guilt, like, okay, I left and went to Atlanta. When they hired me, I was in Chicago, so I'm not going to make them pay for that price because I went to Atlanta. So sometimes, and I used to charge like $250 for a court appearance. So imagine, now you got to fly to Chicago.
So you were losing money.
But I was just like, I'm going to see it through. But then, I had got my cases down. I had one case left. And God just spoke to me, and he was like, do what you're great at. And, I remember saying, but I'm great at all of it. And then somebody was talking about zone of genius and zone of excellence. And I remember like, oh, okay, because my zone of excellence is in this stuff, but my zone of genius is in trademark law.
Okay.
And so I remember just committing and saying in 2018, December, I said, I'm going to do away with all these other practice areas. And then 2019, when the year started, I'm going to just do trademarks. Now, I was scared as heck, okay? The reason I was scared, because I'm going to lose money from, the contract cases, the real estate, I'm going to lose money. But you remember that meme where, God is asking a little girl to give up the teddy bear, and he got the big one behind his back?
Yep.
Ebony, after I did that, first of all, and I got a test, because I'm a Virgo, and, one of my dream one is Beyonce. one was Angela Simmons at the time. And do you know, 2019, February, Angela Simmons DM'd me and was like, can you do something for me? Legal-wise. It wasn't a trademark, though. And I was like, oh my God, I don't think I responded for 2 days because I had to go pray about it. And I was like, you know what, let me stay obedient to God. And I came back and I was like, you know what, unfortunately, I no longer offer the service in my practice area, but I'm going to refer you to a great attorney out of New York because I know she's from New York. And I was like, I'm going to refer you to, but I was like, when you ever need a trademark, just let me know. And being obedient to that, I actually doubled my revenue the next year. And it was a less stress because I was just happy doing what I was doing. And then it made my marketing so much easier because now I'm talking directly regarding this pain point and then realizing how many people just needed this service. To the point, I was able to hire my first attorney in 2019.
Okay.
And grow and scale the business to the point it just took off. And I think what you probably was seeing in that was me finding this area that I love so much.
You basically, what you did was find that expertise, right? Because a lot of times what happens when I tell people you want to be a jack of all trades, but master of nothing.
Yeah.
And you're just running around like a hamster.
Yeah.
And you're not able, because you have to also be careful too when you talk about scaling business and so forth, that you don't become a slave to your business.
And I was in 2000.
And that happens too with the resentment and all of that. Because the last thing you want, your business is supposed to provide you freedom, not put you in a jail cell.
Exactly.
And so many business owners find themselves in that space.
Yeah.
So, okay, and for you to tell one of your dream clients, no thank you.
That was so hard. But guess what? God's so good. Because she's my client now. Because
you helped her I saw this most recent project, right? Yep.
Project.
Yeah. I mean, girl, you helping everybody.
Yeah, she came back. So, and I think, people watch you. You know what I'm saying? And they see you. Because I actually met her sister, and I didn't even, know her. And she just DM'd me. And we just really cool and really good people, you know, and so it's just like people watch you and they you know, and she came back around.
That's right. That's right. So now let's talk about trademarking and why. Now, why is, because some people may hear us talking about trademarking and small businesses having them and you're focused. Why is it so important that a business has a trademark?
It's so important. One, I always ask people, will you build a house on land you don't own? Will you build a house on
No, I wouldn't.
No, right? It just doesn't make sense, right? So it's the same concept of building a business and a brand and you don't own the name, right? Same concept, because so many times often people can go get products, right? Get packaging for the product, marketing material, and all of that. And if you don't own the name, and it's under trademark law, it's not about what's the same, but what can be deemed confusingly similar. So if something is confusingly similar, the owner of that trademark can force you to turn over all your product packaging and marketing materials so that they can destroy it. That's under the law, right? And another reason why you would want a trademark is to protect yourself from somebody copying your brand, right? Or infringing on your brand. You know, in the firm we talk about the three infringers: the copycatter, the counterfeiter, and the confiscator, right? And the copycat, they're really going to like take a lot of elements of your brand, and maybe they won't take the exact name, but something really similar to it. You want to be able to protect yourself from that. And then the counterfeiter, they just going to knock your stuff right off. Like, you know, like with the fake bags and things like Louis Vuitton, right? If they had not had a registered trademark, they can't go in and shut a whole flea market down. You know what I'm saying? With infringing products and bags and things like that. And then for the confiscator, which we're dealing with about 5 of these cases right now, a confiscator is usually somebody that know you, that's close to you. And they'll be like, y'all fall out, right? It's usually like ex-spouse or an ex-business partner or something like that. And then they'll go and file your name. And then be like, oh, well, you got to fight me for your name. We had one girl, just, you know, Halloween just passed, so we did like spooky trademark tales and stuff like that. One girl just recently posted on Twitter where this young lady booked a session with her, a coaching session with her, was emailing her and all that, and then went and filed her trademark. And she posted on Twitter. And then the other young lady responded and said, like, kind of laughing about it. Like, you know, well, you should have protected your name first and all of this crazy stuff. And the thing is, you can fight somebody who takes your name because under the law, the person who had the prior use of it, they're really the rightful owner, right? But like, we charge less than $1,500 to file a trademark, right? But in order to take one of those cases, it's going to be a $3,000 retainer, right? The filing fee of a trademark is $275. To file an opposition to that application that the confiscator took is $600, right? It's a retainer that we charge of $3,000. If we can't get them to go away and settle within the first 60 days, the trademark office is going to generate a court calendar that's going to take us out 2 years, right?
Wow.
And then, so after we pass our 60-day retainer, now you're on a monthly retainer of like $1,500 to $2,000, depending on the nature of your case, right? So you could possibly be paying up to $20,000 to fight for a name that was yours in the first place, right? But because you didn't file it, somebody else filed it. So it's just so important that you protect what's yours. I always tell people, secure the brand so you can secure the bag.
And it sounds like to me the courts are pushing it out for 2-3 years before you can even get to hear the case. The average everyday person can't afford.
Exactly. And so and remember I said this is somebody who was close to you, right?
Right.
So they know what your situation is, right?
Yes.
And some people like, well, you just going to spend the money and fight me, you know?
And they know that most people won't.
And the thing is, and this is a process that we do with the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board. So it's not really a court system per se, and they don't have the jurisdiction to like fine people, right? You can be found, you know, for committing fraud upon the trademark office, but in order for you to be prosecuted for that, now you got to take that to a district federal court for that to happen, because they don't have like any, you know, arresting powers or anything like that. So therefore, like, you know,
the average person is not going to want to just have to deal with the rigmarole, the back, the forth, the filing, and this and that. It becomes too much.
And if they do, they're going to pay for it.
Right.
So it just only makes sense for you to protect your brand up front.
So do you suggest that they do that at the inception of the creation of a company? When should you think about trademarking?
I always recommend, before we go build a house, right, a nice house, right, we're going to clear the land first, right? We're going to make sure that we have the deed to the land. Now, in some countries, that's a different process, but here we want the land, right? And what do? We do a title search to make sure there's no liens and things like that. So before you adopt the name, you first have to do the research on the name, to make sure that it's cleared, right? And so from there, I do recommend you start the trademark process first. And people will say, well, you're going to say that because you're a trademark lawyer. No, because I'm a trademark lawyer that's been practicing over 10 years, right? And I have seen people who have started businesses without doing that process only to lose up to $150,000 or $1 million that they invested on a business, where now they got to rebrand and do it all over again.
Now, is it true, that I know you said confusingly similar, but is it true that sometimes you can just change a little something in the brand to be able to keep it? Like, for instance, my brand, Coinology. Could somebody just say Coinology by Rosezena? They can't do anything like that, right?
Because now that leaves like a false designation of sponsorship, as if you said, okay, Rosezena, go create Coinology by Rosezena, and I'm still associated with you. And then say, for instance, I go do something stupid, and that tarnishes the original brand. Just another spooky tale we talked about this weekend was, the Keith Lee situation coming to Atlanta.
Now, so what exactly, tell me what happened with that whole situation.
So I didn't know who Keith Lee was until he came to Atlanta.
I never heard of him.
You never heard of him either, right? But apparently, he's a very popular food critic, and he came to Atlanta and he got to experience what we experience in ATL when it comes to restaurant culture. And so he went to a restaurant. They're so confusing to me. I probably have to check the name. But I think Milk and Honey. Right?
Okay. And I kept seeing something about Milk and Honey, but I didn't know what was going on. Okay.
And so there's another restaurant here in Atlanta, and they're Milk and Honey too. So one is like the Milk and Honey, and one is Milk and Honey, the real Milk and Honey, or Milk and Honey ATL, or something like that, right? So he does the review on one of the restaurants, right? But now the other restaurant, who is not associated with the one restaurant he does the review on, is getting all the backlash from his review. You get what I'm saying? And so then now that's causing confusion. And now the other restaurant, they got to put out a whole big statement. You're the publicist, right? They got to put out a whole big statement, hoping everybody who's seen the review read the statement saying, this is not us. We are not affiliated with this restaurant. There are two different restaurants, and now they got to do damage control.
Right. They have to go into crisis management.
Exactly. And so it's just that happens in trademark law all the time.
So why is that? Why didn't they sue the other one? Because clearly something is trademarking is off right here, right?
No, and that's a good point, because everyone was kind of saying, and I don't know the facts or whatever, but they were saying they were old business partners. And they split, and one went one way, one went the other way. And what I see a lot, Ebony, when it comes to partnerships, is no partnership agreement, right? And it's so important in your partnership agreement. A partnership agreement is like a prenuptial agreement.
Is.
Okay?
It is. And what people don't realize now, when you go into business with somebody, and as I tell people this, it's like getting married to them. So you can't take going into business with somebody lightly. And I see people just meeting somebody, we like the same thing, and we're going to go into... Oh, no, because when the divorce happens... when it's ugly. It is ugly. And you're going to have someone trying to take something that may not have even been their passion, and it's yours... And so it gets real ugly. So you said that partnership agreement is...
It gets nasty and messy. And the thing is, I have represented some people, and they hire us to do the trademark, and then they are mad at each other and broke up, and then they just send me the... No.
So what do you do?
At this point, we represent the trademark. So y'all two got to go figure it out with y'all other attorney somewhere, because now that's a conflict of interest,
That's right? Well, who owns it then? The entity.
Y'all two need to go figure it out. go to a court, let the judge say who is the owner of the trademark at that point, right? And what tends to happen is if you do not have a partnership agreement, which a lot of people don't, and the law says when two people come together for the purpose of making money, you have now formed a partnership, whether you like it or not.
That's right.
And so if you don't have a partnership agreement, the law is going to apply their state partnership agreement to your situation, right? So it really depends on what that state law says. But what people don't realize is when you're starting these partnerships, like you gotta sit down and have a y'all love each other right now, right? But like, okay, let's talk about if I don't like you tomorrow.
Well, that's the same thing I say about, like you said, prenups. Yeah. You got to have those difficult conversations because the reality of that happening is more common than not.
And it could be, say for instance, God forbid, two women get together. They go into business together. They love each other, right? They would never do anything wrong. And they're both married, right? But the partnership is between them two, right? And one of them, God forbid, die.
Yep.
Now your partner is her husband. And you hated him. All along while she was alive. You hated him. But now he is the partner of that business. So it's only for your protection to do these things. And one, I would say, when you're splitting, even in an agreement, you have to say, okay, if we were to split, who's going to own this name? Because somebody got to be willing to let it go.
You know, I've been through that before. So way before EPI was in existence, I was in a partnership with someone with another PR agency. And luckily, when the relationship went awry, we had only been in that business at that time for about a year. She came up with the name, but I had really created a lot of noise with clientele. So I felt like me changing the name, I'm the one with more clients.
You was the rainmaker.
Right. However, I had a great attorney friend that said to me, you may feel like it's a big deal right now, but it's only been a year. She was like, walk away from it, start anew. It may be a headache right now. But when you have to walk away from that, you have to notify all your clients, all of their partnerships, this and that. They think about all of your intellectual property, your email accounts, all of the stuff that you own under that name, the transfer of all of that, transfer of sites. It's a headache. And that's why a lot of people don't want to. And by the way, I didn't even really like the name anyway. And so I was like, you know what? Let me cut my losses. And start anew, and that's when EPI Media Group was birthed. But I will tell you, that is so when we talk about the dissolution of a brand or a dissolution of a partnership, and I said to myself at that moment, because I've been an entrepreneur all my life, even though I did work in corporate and was an executive in corporate for a while, I've always been a hustler, right? But when I walked away and actually started my agency full time, I said to myself, I will never go into a partnership again. And that may sound harsh, but the dissolution of a partnership is a lot.
Yes. Let me tell you, I feel the same way because what I have seen, I would do a joint venture. They're easy to break up short term and things like that. But a partnership, it can be difficult unless we going to sit down and we're going to have a solid, tight partnership agreement, right? And when I said the state laws apply, most state laws will tell you, you got to dissolve the business. Can't nobody walk away with it.
That's right.
Right? And sometimes that's probably the best thing for everybody so that consumers are not confused. You're not notifying. That's probably the best thing. But when there's now your attorney friend told you right. I just had a situation like this with another person where she was like, I'm in this situation. I was like, just walk away from it.
Just walk away.
Just walk away. I said, if you built it once, you could build it again.
The problem is, it's the building it, it's the time. But I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of it's ego.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to let that ego down and really think about what is the best thing overall. And that's what I think most business owners struggle with, So what's next for you, Rosezena? What can people expect to see? Because I know you are killing the game with trademarks, right? But I know that there's so much more.
Yeah, I actually want to start creating this Rosezena Pierce brand.
Okay.
Right? Everybody
You
knows.
want to start creating. You already have this
Well,
brand,
everybody knows
girl.
me as the Biz Lawyer. I think some of the clients, they come, they pay. They don't even know the law firm name, girl. They just pay. And so I think, Rosezena has so much more to talk about as far as like being a mom and, raising these kids and getting through, all this different stuff that I've been through. And, I want to speak more to college students. I want to speak more at corporations and talk to them about why diversity and inclusion is important and why when you include people, you also have to be inclusive and making them have a safe space when they come into this environment so that they can thrive more. So it's more for me about like just speaking and building like that personal brand and encouraging people, because I had so many people tell me because I worked, because I had kids, because I had to, do all this stuff that I wasn't going to be successful as a lawyer, right? And so I just want people to know, like, you don't have to take their traditional way, whatever that is, right? Like, you just got to get it done.
You got to do it. You got to believe. And I think, like you said, you should be the poster child for DEI because what it does do is educate people who are unfamiliar with faces like ours, what people like us can really do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and because everybody is not entrepreneurial based. So that's the thing. I think right now in this market that we're in now, everybody wants to be their own boss. Everybody wants to da-da-da. Being a boss isn't for everybody.
Right.
And I'm not just saying that. It is a lot of stress. It's a lot of responsibility. And you have to be able to maneuver a lot of different areas and be good at different areas.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to be a quarterback. It's okay. But so if you are going to be a quarterback, we want to make sure that people are giving us opportunities, but I think it's important for people like you and I to also make sure we're giving back to the next Rosenas, the next Ebonies, seeing that next talent. Because I know now you're able to probably spot that next talent in there, the ones that did not get that opportunity like you did.
Absolutely. And I have a team of 15 people. So, and like you come from corporate background, I come from a corporate background. And everything I did in corporate, and I used to work in banking and then in a law firm, it helped me as a CEO. So I never speak down on people working because look, I couldn't be where I'm at without having a team.
That's right.
And so, like you said, entrepreneurship is not for everybody, but where can we be in these spaces where they're safe and we are included and we can be who we are, and that be okay, because we have some amazing people and amazing talent, and a lot of us influence not only our culture but culture period.
That's right.
That's right. It's like, but we're not the ones that's given the credit for it financially and notability of it. So it's just like it's time to include us, right? Give us those seats at the table.
It's time for the table. And guess what? If you don't want to give us a seat at the table,
make it.
That's it. And that's primarily what you and I both did, made our own table. And that, because I said to myself, I'm not asking nobody for nothing else. I'm going to go out here, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to do it alone. I'm going to do it afraid. I'm going to do it cold. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to stop. That was my mantra, and that is my mantra, because I'm gonna tell you now, even at the place of where I'm at now, I still grind like I'm hungry. I still grind like I'm broke. Because you can't ever give that up at this point. Go ahead.
Real quick, I used to, before, I got to where I was at, I used to be like, why T.I. and Tyler Perry work so much? They rich.
Right.
And now I get it. Like
That's
you said,
right.
You never want to go back. Tyler Perry sleep in his car, T.I. from the hood. It's like, you got to keep putting in the work, and especially if we are trying to be legacy creators. We are legacy creators, right? It doesn't stop, right? It doesn't stop in this moment. I still got a good 9 years to go before I'm looking at retiring, but I gotta make it happen.
And the other thing too is I think it's also innately in us. Your mind is constantly going. Working. You're always thinking. You're always going. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And that's what I'm saying. I know that there's something next for you beyond the Biz Lawyer. But you've turned the trademarking industry over to be something sexy, something fun, something that the everyday business owner is talking about. I just most recently seen your new campaign where you guys are sending out the boxes, the branded boxes, and so now your clients are excited. I'm seeing them open them.
Box, they call in the office like, "Where's our box?" I'm like, "It's coming."
But it's brilliant. And I would say one of the things I'll say is for business owners, you have to be strong in sales marketing.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is a brilliant marketing campaign, because without you having to go out here and buy a gazillion ads, you're allowing your clients to be your ads. And so all their followers, and then they're saying, well, what I want to be, I wanted that. So that was great. And I think that has been a great part of what you've been doing since you've been on Instagram, is the fact that you are integrating social media marketing into it, and you're making it fun, and you're making it bite-sized. So I think that's great. I want to also thank you for coming out today. I know you're real busy, and I'm so glad that you made this happen today.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm so happy we was able to make it happen, and this was great. I loved it.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time on Coinology.
Get no money if you constantly worried about what everybody else got to say. If you constantly got your eyes on what everybody else doing, you ain't getting no money. When it comes down to closing a deal, I get it done. Every single one. I'm the certified deal closer.
Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.